This text is taken from 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 through 5, and it reads, "Blessed be the God of mercies and all consolation, who consoles us in all of our affliction, so that we may be able to console others who are in affliction with the consolation that we've received from God." And I want you to think with me on this topic, pass it on, pass it on. Having spent some 7 decades living life on the real side and serving more than 4 decades in the ministry of healing as a physician and pastor, I'm persuaded that much of the work of effective ministry is, as suggested in this text, receiving the consolation that God pours into us during our darkest nights of the soul and passing it on. But on January 17th, 2001, my storage was empty. Ray and I were in a very dark place in our marriage, but we continued in our role as ministers and doctors to offer consolation. Ray's mother had begun the slow, painful slide of Alzheimer's disease, and after we could no longer deny our denial, we precipitously moved her into our home. We were floundering, but we continued to do the things that we'd been called to do, and we were offering consolation to others. Most worrisome was one of our children who was battling depression. It was also a tough season for her, some days up and most days down. And on January 17th, she was down to the ground when she took an overdose of medication. "I'm sorry, Mom," my child stammered. "I don't want to die, but I just don't know what else to do." Her dilemma forced us to confront a very painful reality. Disappointment, discouragement, and delusionment had not only come calling, they'd taken up residence in our home. We had been so busy ministering consolation and tending to the gardens of others that we had neglected to tend to our own. I felt that I had failed my child, and I too didn't know what to do. I was broken and frightened and ashamed. A few days later, I finally summoned enough fortitude to listen to my mounting phone messages. So many of our beloved congregants called to offer prayers and to pass on consolations of all kinds. The message that mattered most came from the high school Sunday school teacher who over the years had helped us to raise our daughters. It was a 5-word lifeline. "You are a good mother." Yes, we eventually bounced back, started moving at a slower pace, more spiritual discipline, and yes, lots of good psychotherapy turned the tide. A couple of years ago, a mother waited patiently at the door while I sent our worshipers off with hugs and wishes for a good week. I knew this mother. She was so broken and she could barely speak. Her child had attempted suicide a few days earlier. The mother was frightened, in despair, and embarrassed. I knew that feeling well, and I knew exactly what to say. "You're a good mother." She sobbed even harder and hugged me more tightly after I offered that 5-word lifeline, I had passed it on.